Chapter 3. The Secrets. While in the distance, the residents of the grand monarchical palace of Rakana could hear the celebrations of the Aduma as a faint, joyous din. The many hallways and corridors of the august palace had a quiet solemnity. A company of the monarch's Red Guard lined the grand hallway leading to the private royal bedchamber. By the order of Lord Oto-Mani, the guard had been doubled throughout the palace and upon the grounds in the wake of the assassination of the previous monarch. Locked gilded doors added layers of security and hopefully secrecy. But the intrigues of the palace were legendary. No matter if the greatest of discretion was exercised by all denizens of the palace, from the sovereign to the servants, nothing was a secret, forever. Having dispensed with the primary royal duty of the day, Oto-Mani ensured the outer door to his royal bedchamber was double-bolted, and that notice was given that he was not to be disturbed, even by his first minister. He then quickly and silently disrobed from the light tunic, trousers, and sash that he wore. Looking at Diodi, whose back was turned, Oto-Mani folded his powerfully muscled arms across his chiseled chest while flashing teeth that were perfect pearls. He had a way of smiling with his entire face and burnished brown body that made Diodi melt. "Finally," said Oto-Mani. "Yes, finally." Diodi sighed from across the room and then turned and was excitedly startled when he saw that the monarch wore nothing but his nude manhood. "Oh my!" He matched the devious grin that was looking back at him. Oto-Mani winked and said, "Now let the real freedom celebration begin." In the corner of the bedchamber opposite an opulently large bed sat the monarch's Ola-Rhea, framed in red satin and upon a short golden pedestal. It had been handed down for generations in the hopes that it could alert the sovereign to any looming threats to the realm, if properly divined by a gifted priestess or fortune teller. There was a superstition among the common folk that if one was not careful, an Ola-Rhea could be used by nosy demons, witches, warlocks, or trolls to spy on and eventually cast a spell upon unsuspecting humans. It was remedied by a custom called Blackening the Black Eye. A black cloth was draped over an Ola-Rhea to blind the evil on the other side. Some elders genuinely believed in the occasional necessity of this practice, whereas younger folks did it upon a lark to signify their intentions of hiding their naughtiness. The twin priestly orders of the brothers and sisters of Odo-Kymwah considered the practice heretical and an offense worthy of a few clerical lashes in the public square among the poor, or a penitence of 100 fire gold coins among the middling classes. With a mischievously raised eyebrow, Oto-Mani grimaced as he dropped a black cloth over the ancestral Ola-Rhea. Diodi heretically exclaimed, "Yes, blind the demons, babe." They both laughed in embarrassment. Then Oto-Mani moved blithely across the room, collapsing the distance in a few springs, and smothered an excited Diodi with sumptuous kisses around his neck and now bare strong shoulders and heaving chest. Like two schoolboys in a rush, because they feared getting caught by a suspicious teacher, the two hurriedly pulled each other into the downy softness of the royal bed. Kissing, stroking, massaging, and sighing with arduous abandon, their only concern was the gorgeous pleasure of each other. Each gazed upon the other as a stunning vision of sculpted and alluring masculinity, whose skin brimmed with a russet glow. They were a portrait of endearing tenderness to any unprejudiced eyes, lovers supreme. But in the palace all eyes were prejudiced. Few in all of the realm were supposed to know that they were lovers. The protocols of the ancestors, the great book of souls and laws, prohibited such love between same genders. That is what the brother priesthood taught. Most people openly pretended they did not know, although whispers abounded. In Rakana it is said, nothing is more widely known than a state secret. Diodi was Oto-Mani's childhood best friend, a childhood body servant, who grew to become the closest of all royal advisors and attendants, no matter those with loftier titles. Officially, Diodi was the monarch's chief steward and keeper of the ancestral diadem or fire gold crown, but Oto-Mani liberally padded Diodi's duties. Diodi now maintained the royal household and all royal private affairs, served as chief privy secretary, secured the royal state robes, flame scepter, and crown, and kept the monarch's official book of lineage history under lock and key. It was difficult for all but the first minister to get an audience with the monarch unless they went through Diodi. Few things that happened in the monarch's household escaped the notice of the chief steward. Few things. Diodi's half-Aduma heritage was also widely whispered about, for it rankled most nobles that a so-called half-breed was so close to the Fire Throne. Diodi's dear mother, Renota, who was a Aduma house slave of the great royal lady Odo-Kymwah, was raped by a drunken palace gardener. Diodi was the child birthed from that rape. Renota was once a woman so full of light and life she inspired children to tell fables and elders to frolic. When that vicious dullard violated her, he also violated the soul of the community that loved her. Priests who tried to convert more Aduma women to the ways of the Oto-Mani and the Celestial Sisters failed to understand how such violations made Aduma women doubt the piety of the Universal Church. How could any just goddess impassively stand by while Aduma women's bodies and souls were crushed? The royal lady Odo-Kymwah was so distraught when she heard about the rape of Renota. She insisted her husband, Oto-Mani the 31st, have the rapist flogged. When the monarch said,
"I will not lose a good gardener over some Aduma slut,"
the royal lady still vowed to protect Renota and her child. After Renota tragically died in childbirth, then Odo-Kymwah saw to the care of Diodi. A midwife delivered and raised this only child of Renota. Upon Diodi's 10th birthday, Odo-Kymwah officially assigned him as a personal servant to her second son. This was the bud from which a great friendship and love grew. Given rampant court jealousy and Diodi's elevated place with the monarch, one envious drunken young noble from a rival house was imprisoned for several weeks when in a slip of the tongue he was overheard at a state banquet to call the monarch's steward Queen Diodi. Oto-Mani was not blind to how his love for Diodi faced perils and prejudices. He just believed as sovereign that he was the one man in the realm who had the power and privilege to love who he loved. Among the Aduma and the Rakana working peoples, those without title or wealth, Oto-Mani was admired and possibly even loved. But the people were wise. They knew a monarch who was too compassionate, who did not rule by fear and threats, could not be monarch for too long. The fate of Oto-Mani's older brother, Oto-Mani the 32nd, was one of the sad tales of a compassionate ruler. The 32nd ruler was born blind, but he had enormous vision and heart. He wanted to steer the realm away from the cruelty, slavery, and hierarchy his father imparted by ruling iron-fisted for more than 50 years. He was a beautiful, delicate man, gentle in temperament, who hated all violence and hated Rakana's slave system the most. Like his younger brother, the 32nd ruler was rumored to most prefer the company of men and only promised to marry Ola-Rhea to satisfy the Council of Lords and the priesthood, who cited the law's requirement that all monarchs marry. One late balmy fall evening, the 32nd ruler was discovered dead in his bedchamber, with a knife brutally plunged into his neck, and his bare sweat-soaked chest coated in dark blood. Curiously, no assassin was ever apprehended. The official rumor was that the monarch's demise was by the hand of a jealous male lover who could not bear the monarch's betrothal to the lovely Ola-Rhea. The unofficial rumor, which the people most believed, was that the 32nd monarch was killed by the slave power structure. The reason was that he intended to grant a full manumission and citizenship to the Aduma men who served in the monarch's legions. Because these men valiantly served, it was said the 32nd monarch believed they not just be granted freedom and a second-class citizenship in return for their military service, but they and their immediate families deserved to be granted their freedom and full citizenship. That was enough for him to die. Lady Ola-Rhea deeply grieved her slain fiancé, but because she had not yet married the monarch, her greatest concern was that she and her unborn child were left to the ruthless whims of the Rakanan royal court, and her son was not the official heir. Fortunately, the lady was very wise, clear-eyed, and adept politically. So she quickly requested that Oto-Mani the 33rd declare her child his heir, out of a love for his older brother and Ola-Rhea, as well as the realization that if there was no pressure for him to produce an heir, then there was less pressure for him to marry. Oto-Mani the 33rd agreed to her request, shocking the court. Great royal lady Odo-Kymwah was fond of Ola-Rhea and dearly loved both her first and second sons. But every day she feared her second son's life and reign were in danger like that of her first son. The second son shared the same flaws of the first son in two openly loving men and two visibly hating slavery. She counseled great discretion. The great royal lady knew the dangers of a lack of discretion, for all throughout the 20 loveless years of her marriage, to Oto-Mani the Tyrant, she maintained a warm regard for a previous lover. His name was Arado, and he was the chief musician and ballad master of the Lord Ketilan, governor of the province of Ahua. Oto-Mani the Tyrant was too fond of wine and young women to care about the discreet peccadillos of his wife, as long as she did not embarrass him at court. But it was too much when it was rumored that Odo-Kymwah and Arado were discovered in the royal lady's bedchambers in a passionate nude embrace. Arado either had to flee or lose his life. A popular tavern limerick explains these palace intrigues like this: "In the land of Rakana, where tales intertwine, a web spun of lies makes the truth hard to find. So tread with great caution, dear traveler bold, for in Rakana's legends, nothing's as told. Yet in its grand maze, through the fog and the haze, also lies beauty in its fire and gold."
Now, good people, please like, comment, and subscribe to catch the next thrilling episode of Red Circles of Fire.